York. I'm Elizabeth Gershon.
And I'm Leonard, and this is Showbiz Today Live, Friday, May 22nd, 1987.
Film legend Gregory Peck talks about his new release, Amazing Grace and Chuck.
We'll go behind the scenes and talk with Dudley Moore about his new comedy.
A review of Beverly Hills Cop 2.
And New York happenings, including a book signing with Vanna White.
Everywhere you looked, it was Vanna-mania as she introduced and autographed her first book.
At the top of the showbiz headlines, an East Harlem community played host to celebrities and the public last night to benefit a good cause. Cheryl Washington was there and filed this report.
East Harlem's 129th Street was closed to traffic and open for a street party. The occasion was the third annual benefit for the Children's Storefront, Harlem's only tuition-free private school. And what a party it was. The sounds of music filled the spring air as little children frolicked around with a man on stilts who in their eyes was larger than life. Why should we make the public aware of the Children's Storefront?
Not so much to be made aware of the Children's Storefront, of what we're trying to do. Maybe that would help some educators and some people in government understand their responsibility to the oppressed of this country.
Lending their support, a singing group with roots in the community, Ashford and Simpson.
They've done a lot of good for a lot of children in this area, and I understand a lot of them have gone on and done great things in colleges and some of the very finest colleges, and we're very thrilled about that.
A future college-bound sixth grader thinks Children's Storefront is better than public school.
It's special because the teachers love you, they give you individual help, and you learn more than any other public school.
By 1990, the Children's Storefront will increase its enrollment from 87 to 120 students. From the looks of things here, that number may be realized long before then. Cheryl Washington, CNN, New York.
Today was full of celebrity happenings in New York. Vanna was in town to sell her book. Itzhak Perlman and John Houseman accept honorary degrees from Juilliard. And Jose Feliciano is honored with a school in his name. Frank Radis explains.
There was a lot to sing about Friday morning at New York Public School number 155 in East Harlem. The school was renamed the Jose Feliciano School of the Performing Arts in tribute to the four-time Grammy winner, Jose Feliciano.
They have such things as the United Negro College Fund and those great organizations, but yet in the Latin circuit there's never been something like that. So this is why I'm taking an interest, because I think that just like the United Negro College Fund feels, I think a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
In a musical tribute of another kind, honorary doctoral degrees were given for the first time to 6 alumni of the Juilliard School at today's graduation ceremony. First director of the drama school, John Houseman, tells us about how he felt about earning his degree.
I feel very honored and very happy, and it's very nice to be back here after so many years.
And premier violinist Itzhak Perlman, alumni of the music school, was another honoree.
It's the fact that they've never done it before and that they're doing it now, and that the fact that they chose me to be one of the recipients is a great honor for me, and I'm very, very happy.
Across town, hundreds of fans turned out at Macy's department store to meet their favorite letter-turner and celebrity, Vanna White. Everywhere you looked, it was Vanna-mania as she introduced and autographed her first book, Vanna Speaks. Frank Radis, CNN, New York.
These items in our Showbiz Databank today. Maybe you'd like to join members of his family and sing a chorus of happy birthday to the legendary actor Laurence Olivier. Sir Larry is 80 today, and he had a few words to say about reaching that landmark.
I'd love to go onto the stage again. I've always been very fond of treading the boards, but I have been latterly. I've suffered for the first time in my life from stage fright slightly, and that is a worry.
Certainly is when you're Laurence Olivier. The honchos at Fox Television were all in a swivet yesterday. scotching a rumor that they had offered Jim and Tammy Bakker, late of the PTL Club, jobs as rotating co-hosts of The Late Show, no longer starring Joan Rivers. Jim and Tammy's spokesperson did say an offer had come in, but did not say who at Fox made it. Today, a Fox spokesperson fessed up that maybe, just maybe, an underling on the staff of The Late Show might possibly have approached the Bakkers about an appearance. And if that happened, Fox withdraws the invite. So Jim and Tammy don't have to RSVP. In the face of all the positive news that we heard earlier this week on our Showbiz Today special report on the state of the movie business, one of the major players in Hollywood, the Cannon Group, posted losses of over $60 million in 1986. On the other hand, Amadeus is doing pretty well. Not the movie, the long-dead composer. The original manuscripts of 9 symphonies written in Mozart's own hand, all before he was 20 years of age, were sold yesterday in London for $4.34 million. The purchase was made by an agent for an unknown third party. Ironically, Mozart died broke at the age of 35.
Coming up next on Showbiz Today, our focus: why are so many books being put on videotape?
All new on Showbiz this week, we'll talk with Spalding Gray about his film Swimming to Cambodia. We'll have more Showbiz news, so stay tuned.
Now back to Showbiz Today on CNN.
Listening to the stars in our Showbiz Focus. A number of well-known stars have been employed to read books on audio tape so busy commuters can keep up with their reading while keeping their eyes on the road. CNN's Gloria Hillard explains.
Embarrassed, the little boy started to walk away. Boya, chotto omachinasa, Sulu said gently.
The story is the book version of Star Trek IV, the movie, brought to life by a familiar face from the Enterprise crew, George Takei.
It seemed like just great personal fun.
Takei certainly isn't the only star turned storyteller. Dozens of celebrities are creating a stage for the ear, and the audience is getting larger.
People don't have time to sit down and read a book, or the patience to read a book.
But in your car, you can listen to a star like Ed Asner narrating Elmer Leonard's 52 pickup.
If I want to be an up to my chin or not is up to me, right? Again, there was a silence. I love getting to the punch. I love doing the twist. I love doing the surprise, weaving a spell and enchanting one, so to speak. She always looked good. In the cold morning light, she looked good.
And for the actor, there's also the challenge.
To vocally create the world of Star Trek, or the galaxy of Star Trek. In terms of my career, it's an opportunity to demonstrate that capability.
And instead of being cast in just one part, what could be more fun for an actor than to play them all?
The little boy ran away down the street. What was that all about? McCoy said. Who was that? That, Doctor, Sulu said, still watching the little boy, was my great-great-great-grandfather.
Gloria Hillard, CNN, Hollywood.
Joining us now live in our Washington, D.C. studios is Valerie Cade, the president of Simon & Schuster Audio. Valerie, isn't it kind of a contradiction in terms for a book publisher to be making cassettes?
Well, we don't really think so. We think that books on tape are a logical extension of the publishing business because people's habits are to listen to materials on the radio and television, and why shouldn't they listen to books as well in their cars?
What are some of the bestsellers that you put on cassettes so far? I don't mean bestsellers as they were as books, but the cassettes that have sold best.
Well, some of the best sellers have been things like Stephen King's The Mist, which is a very exciting story told in a very exciting, dramatic, 3D sound production that is very scary, and people love that.
Who read that one?
That was dramatized, actually. We had a number of actors.
Like an old radio show, in other words.
Exactly. Like an old radio show, but much more exciting with a very advanced audio technique.
Does the name of the narrator on the cover of the cassette help sell it, or do people really get more interested in the material?
It's really both. We try to match the reader to the material so that the consumer will notice the name and get an image of the reader, and then that will also help to sell the tape.
Now, in both cases on our piece that we showed before our interview, we had men narrators. Are women doing this too?
Oh, yes. In fact, we've recently had Leslie Caron read The Lover, which is a French novel by Marguerite Duras, a very exciting piece that she did for us in France, actually. It's the translation of that novel.
Where do these sell best? Where people in general have long commutes like Los Angeles and places like that?
Yes, California is one of the best markets for audio cassettes because of the long commute, absolutely.
Valerie, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Liz and I will take a short break and return after these messages.
Still to come on Showbiz Today, Gregory Peck talks about his new movie role as President of the United States.
Next week, we'll meet legendary guitarist Eric Clapton. Showbiz Today brings you the latest entertainment news.
Vanna, just someone who needs a really good night's sleep. That's why I sleep on a back supporter mattress from Spring Air. So I wake up feeling great. Nothing refreshes like Spring Air.
The upcoming Memorial Day weekend is traditionally a big box office bonanza. One of the films coming out is Amazing Grace and Chuck, and one of the biggest names in the film biz stars. He's Gregory Peck. Although he hasn't been seen much on the big or small screen lately, Lawrence Sidney caught up with the star in New York and has this report.
Throughout his distinguished 40-year career, Gregory Peck has run the gamut of film characterizations. He's played a farmer, a lawyer, a doctor, a drunk, a Monsignor, a Jew, and a businessman. In his new movie, Amazing Grace and Chuck, Gregory Peck plays the President of the United States at a time when the country's children and professional athletes are protesting against nuclear war.
You came out of a self-imposed early retirement in order to do this picture. What was it about this film that attracted you to the character?
Simple. I read the script, and I found myself touched by it. I choked up a few times, and at the end I felt like cheering.
Proponents of nuclear disarmament will probably cheer the message of this film. But Amazing Grace and Chuck is meant to entertain and not grandstand.
I think if we could ask for anything, it would be that people would have felt entertained. They would have accepted this as a kind of fairy story, myth, fable, if only this could happen kind of story. And then perhaps they might think afterwards, I can do something. I'm not just one of the helpless multitude that has nothing to do with these decisions about the life or death of the planet. I can do something.
Gregory Peck has been trying to do something his entire adult life. Lawrence Sidney, CNN, New York.
Dudley Moore's career, which had a tremendous up period with 10 and Arthur, has been a little down of late. But there is hope that his new project, Like Father, Like Son, will get things in gear again, as Sherry Sylvester reports.
Dudley Moore is making movies again after 2 years. There were lots of offers. The temporary retirement was Moore's idea.
I turned 50 and I thought, wait a minute, something's got to stop here. And couldn't stop getting older, so I thought I'd stop work. Pathetic remonstration against the fates.
So what drew him back to the movies? The chance to play a 16-year-old, at heart anyway. In Like Father, Like Son, Moore is possessed by the personality of his teenage son, played by Kirk Cameron. Through a quirk of weird science, the two have traded minds, but not bodies. The role was just what Moore was looking for to cure his middle-age blues.
You know, I loved the idea of an adult being, as it were, possessed by a 16-year-old mind and attitude, because it enabled me to be silly, and it also enabled me to go through quite a difficult acting experience, it's turned out to be.
Although billed as a comedy, the film has its dramatic moments as well, giving Moore the chance to expose his serious side.
We just did a very emotional scene in there. Haven't done one like that in the film for a long time, and it's hard. But when you get it, it's terrific.
It will be several months before audiences find out if Like Father, Like Son is terrific, since it just finished shooting. As for Moore, he confesses he never knows how well a film will turn out. Sherry Sylvester, CNN, Hollywood.
Moviegoers seem to think Beverly Hills Cop 2 is terrific. On its opening day, it brought in more than $4 million at the box office. As for whether our reviewer Carol Buckland thinks Beverly Hills Cop 2 is terrific, well, let's see what she has to say.
Axel Foley's back, and he's bound to be big, big, big at the box office. But that doesn't mean Beverly Hills Cop 2 is a great or even good movie. In fact, it's neither. Eddie Murphy offers a sassy star turn as Axel, although he settles for doing shtick rather than creating a character. He and his Beverly Hills buddies, Judge Reinhold and John Ashton, cover a lot of familiar territory while they're trying to solve a series of so-called alphabet crimes.
Hey! I got beer. Watch out, this deck is very slippery. There's beer in the refrigerator, and if you like, you go behind the bar, make yourself martinis. Wait a second, y'all on duty. No martinis for you. Perrier water is what you want, right? Guy got some swimming trunks in the bedroom. Dive in the pool. Come on, in the pool.
You've stolen this house.
My uncle's house.
The lady behind the crimes is Bridget Nielsen. Her strictly plastic part requires a lot of leg and not much else. About half this movie showcases Murphy doing comic riffs, most of them not quite clones of routines done in the original Beverly Hills Cop. Director Tony Scott pads out the rest of the picture with a bunch of car crashes. The mangling of metal gets monotonous. Beverly Hills Cop 2 is slick and stylish, but ultimately stale. It's going to make a lot of money. It's also going to disappoint a lot of moviegoers. Carol Buckland, CNN.
When we continue in our Showbiz News to Use, we'll look at the Memorial Day weekend's entertainment happenings.
Next week, we'll talk with Liza Minnelli at our opening night performance at Carnegie Hall. All that and more on Showbiz Today.
And now back to Showbiz Today on CNN.
Our News to Use segment this week begins with a look at what's new on home video. Here's Dennis Michael.
The fanatic cult following of the 1960s British television series The Prisoner is being kept alive by home video. In 1968, CBS scheduled The Prisoner, a bizarre psychological adventure series from England, as a summer replacement. The Prisoner was a sequel of sorts to another British TV series, Secret Agent, created by its star, Patrick McGoohan. The agent, or at least an agent, resigns his job only to find himself stripped of his identity and imprisoned in a surreal village. The show went well beyond this format, however, and quickly became an allegorical look at the forces of individuality in tension with crushing authority.
I am not a number. I am a free man.
It never did gather wide acceptance. It was just too weird. But a sharp-eyed cult has grown up around it. MPI Home Video has been releasing individual episodes of the show. There were a dozen or so made. Recently, a lost episode was unearthed in a film vault in Toronto. Version 2 of The Chimes of Big Ben varies from the episode that was aired in 1968 in some 24 ways. Just the kind of thing to keep a cult fan with a freeze frame button on his remote happy for hours. The lost episode of The Prisoner arrived this week in the video stores. It's Oscar time on the new release shelf. You can see Paul Newman's Best Actor performance in The Color of Money. That's out now, and it's this week's best bet. Also, there's Marlee Matlin, Best Actress in Children of a Lesser God. Non-winners, Clint Eastwood the Leatherneck in Heartbreak Ridge, and there's opium smuggling and soap opera in Taipan. See you at the rental counter. Dennis Michael, CNN, Hollywood.
Summer doesn't start on the calendar for almost a month, but in people's hearts it starts with this holiday weekend. And here's a preview of some of the events going on all around the country. First, movies opening around the country. Beverly Hills Cop 2. Eddie Murphy is back as Axel Foley. And Chipmunk Adventure stars none other than Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. And Ernest, you know what I mean? That Ernest. He stars in a feature film about summer camp called Ernest Goes to Camp. Rocking around the country, Bon Jovi is on the run Saturday in Battle Creek, Michigan at the Kellogg Center Arena, Sunday in Newark, Ohio at the Buckeye Lake Center. The heat is on with Bryan Adams Saturday at the Sportatorium in Hollywood, Florida. Big Audio Dynamite bangs into San Diego, California Saturday at the Stratos Club. And catch Survivor at the Garrett Coliseum on Saturday in Montgomery, Alabama. In Las Vegas this weekend, Old Blue Eyes himself is appearing at the Golden Nugget. That's Frank Sinatra, of course. And Joan Rivers cuts it up at Caesars. In Atlantic City, laugh it up with Buddy Hackett at Caesars Palace. Dolly Parton struts her country stuff at the Golden Nugget. And on TV this weekend, One-on-One, 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time here on CNN. The guests will be Jeff Goldblum, Crystal Gale, and Sonny Bono.
Goes one-on-one.
And that's it for this edition of Showbiz Today. Be sure to join Bill Tush this weekend for Showbiz This Week. And please join me Sunday for good news on Superstation WTBS. I'm Liz Wickersham.
And I'm Lee Leonard. On Monday, we'll celebrate 10 years of Star Wars movies, and we'll leave you now with a look at singer Bryan Adams from an upcoming story that we'll show you next week. For all of us here at Showbiz Today, have a terrific and safe holiday weekend.
Should the U.S. act as the world's police force? That's a subject for debate on tonight's Crossfire at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Next is Moneyline.
This is CNN, the world's most important network.